All right, second video of the day. Draft day is near just days away. Literally, it's Monday. So when you're watching this, at least it's Monday, and the draft is on a Thursday. So what I wanted to do is do my rankings for certain position groups. There's going to be cornerback, linebacker, and edge, the three most prominent positions for a lot of people for the Cleveland Browns in this draft. I want to give you my top 5 rankings for them. These are going to be rankings according to how I feel like they would fit with the Cleveland Browns. So if somebody I don't think is going to be a fit with the Cleveland Browns breaks out and becomes the best player in the position group, don't sit here on this video in 3 years and be like, well, this age like milk, because I'm not talking about who's going to be the best player, just who's going to fit what the Cleveland Browns do as of 2021 the best. Now, all that being said, what's the position group I'm talking about? The defensive back room. That's the position group that I'm going to be talking about. So who do I think is the top 5 defensive backs in this draft class for the Cleveland Browns? Well, let's talk about it right after this. This is an interesting defensive back class because it ended up being rearranged dramatically from what people thought it would be at the beginning of the year, right? I know Shaun Wade, Ohio State defensive back, was somebody that people thought was easily going to be able to make the top 5 DBs list of all the DBs that would be eligible for the draft in 2021. And it's just not been the case, right? There's been a number of risers, a number of fallers. Even Patrick Surtain has fallen in some people's eyes from that top corner position. So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into this ranking, and we're going to start with a guy who was probably higher up boards at the beginning of this year rather than where he ended up now, which is Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. And now Caleb Farley is a very interesting prospect, right? He has great athleticism. He has great gifts. He's up and down with his play, where he's not necessarily the most consistent guy. You know, if he's charged up and ready to go, he'll be great, but sometimes he doesn't play well. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Greedy Williams coming out of LSU, minus the back injury, right? Greedy didn't have injury history coming into the league, but Caleb Farley does, which makes him a little bit worse of a prospect than Greedy Williams. This is a guy who can play corner, he can cover, he can do all these things well, but he does have some issues when it comes to more of his technique, and he also has some issues when it comes to his consistency. And then you throw in the back injury, right? That's the big elephant in the room. Now, I don't pretend to know anything about his injury or know anybody who does, so I don't know where he is with that. But I know my tiebreaker with him and the guy I have at number 4 was about which one do you weigh higher, right? Because they both come with their own asterisks at 4 and 5. And with Caleb Farley, if I see a bad back, that's a huge concern. Bad backs just cause so many other injuries, right? And they're not necessarily major injuries, but they're always going to be persistent if somebody has a bad back, or they're likely is a better word, to be more consistent throughout somebody's career if they have a bad back. And there's really no way to cure a bad back. There's no, knee surgery for a bad back. Like, you're not going to get spinal surgery and continue your NFL career. So that being said, the back scares me. I want to know where he's at with that back, because again, if somebody's back's out, that can mean a lot of injuries down the line, and it won't just be limited to that back area. So that's where my concern is with Caleb Farley. I would love to know what the medical is on him, but since I don't, I have to assume that it's bad, or at least play it like it's worst case scenario, because again, the Browns have a ton of injured corners already, and they really can't take a risk on another guy who might have an injury history when you're already gambling on Greedy. You're already got Denzel Ward out there who might be out there for 10 games. You have this issue already with Grant Delpit, right? Grant Delpit's coming back off of an Achilles injury. So you don't necessarily want to be so eager to add another corner with that kind of history, especially when the rest of the room, the DB room, just doesn't have that same fortune, or doesn't have fortune when it comes to injury. The next guy on my list is Kelvin Joseph out of Kentucky. Now, this dude has a ton of red flags, same as Caleb Farley, right? Kicked off a ton of teams, doesn't get glowing reviews from every coach he's ever played under, and, has what people would call character concerns, Kelvin Joseph. But he is a tremendous football player. He has great athleticism, great traits at the cornerback position. He has the same traits, I think a little bit more traits in athleticism than a Caleb Farley. I think he's also just a better man corner than Caleb Farley, a better zone corner than Caleb Farley. I think he's just a better football player right now than Caleb Farley. The issue with him and Caleb Farley is they come with their own question marks. One is about a lot of question marks that come off the field. The other one are about question marks with Caleb Farley that might keep him off the field. And when you have to kind of weigh those two things, you have to ask yourself, are you more likely to get lucky and this dude's back gets recovered, or are you more likely to get lucky and, Kelvin Joseph straightens out after you draft him? I don't know. It's a coin toss at this situation. But if you like one player more than the other, I guess you got to rank them higher than the other. And that's why Kelvin Joseph is going to be above Caleb Farley. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of fans out here who do not like that ranking, but I'm going to stick to it. I do think Kelvin Joseph is the fourth best corner for the Cleveland Browns at the very least. Now, he's a gamble. He's not somebody I would take in the first round. Maybe not even in the second round, unless you got like multiple second round picks. But third round, yeah, take that risk at the third round because he could be one of the best corners in this draft. Like, remember, Marcus Peters fell out of where he was supposed to go. I think he went later in the first round. But that ended up working out with Marcus Peters, and he had similar concerns coming out of college. And he's been relatively fine. So, maybe you can get that lucky with Kelvin Joseph. We'll see. If John Dorsey were here, this is a John Dorsey pick, by the way. Like, John Dorsey would definitely, he would pick Kelvin Joseph in the second round. It would almost be signed, sealed, delivered. He wouldn't even be drafting a corner in the first round. But I don't know how Andrew Berry rolls with this kind of thing, and I don't know if the Browns are necessarily at the point where they want to introduce guys who might not be great influences into the locker room yet. I don't know where they're at. I don't know what their confidence level is of taking in a guy like that. But Kelvin Joseph, just as a football player, he's tremendous, and he should be looked at seriously. All right, my third guy is Greg Newsome. Now, I dropped the film review, I think, a couple of days ago once this video is uploaded, or at least a day ago, on Greg Newsome. I like Greg Newsome a lot. I think he fits a lot of what the Cleveland Browns do. I think if he's there at 26, you have to strongly consider it and do it depending on who's on the board. I see not a ton of reasons not to take him if he's there at 26. He's a good man. He's a really good man corner, my bad. Somebody who can definitely, you could put on an island with most guys. I think he's a more man eater at the second corner position. But also he's somebody who can survive in zone. Sometimes you get these corners who are eaters in man, but just don't have the awareness or the ability to find the ball in the NFL. Like, I think the Bengals got a ton of corners like this. If you look at how the Browns were able to back shoulder them last year. And that can be an issue, especially when we're going to be running the amount of zone that the Cleveland Browns defense usually runs. Since that is the case, Greg Newsome, he's played a ton of zone. I think he's better in man than he is in zone, but very rarely do you find somebody who is the inverse, like a Richard Sherman, who's better in zone than he is in man. I think he's a good fit for the system. He has decent size, decent length, decent speed. I like him a lot. I don't know if he's a number one corner because despite him testing at like a 4.38, I don't see the 4.38 on film. He got beat long a couple of times. He's somebody who would benefit from having safety help a bulk of the time whenever he's out there. But he's also a guy who's going to be really good for most other situations. We're talking about somebody put to the next side of Denzel Ward who can also occasionally play where Denzel Ward plays when you need to use Denzel Ward either elsewhere or if Denzel Ward's just not healthy, then you got somebody in Greg Newsome. Yeah, number 2 in this draft class for me, for the Cleveland Browns, Patrick Surtain II. A lot's already been said, so I'll keep this brief. Patrick Surtain's a really good corner, a really tested corner, and he's somebody who is probably going to go in the top 15 of this draft based on name value and his tape alone, and I think he's a really good corner. Again, he has some of the similar struggles that I think Greg Newsome does have, even though they both tested well. I think they both kind of struggle when they're asked to cover routes that are deep downfield. Like, I don't know what the long speed really is with those guys at the recovery time because they do get beat occasionally there. But other than that, they're fine tacklers. They're fine in zone. they're going to be very good corners in the NFL, given that they go to the right system. So Patrick Surtain, number 2. And my number 1 guy is, of course, you know who it is, J.C. Horn. I think this is a similar leap to, if you guys remember the 2007 draft, where it was like Leon Hall that was like the number 1 corner all year, right? Leon Hall, number 1 corner. That's going to be the guy, the first corner in the draft. If you ever watched the college game in 2006, 2007, Leon Hall, whenever he's brought up, he's going to be the first corner drafted. Then you get to the draft and Darrelle Revis goes ahead of him. I think it's a similar situation with Leon Hall and Darrelle Revis than it is to J.C. Horn, who I think it feel like is a Darrelle Revis in this case, to Leon Hall, who Patrick Surtain similar to. Now, why do I think J.C. Horn is going to be so good? Now, let me clarify. I don't think he's going to be Darrelle Revis or anything. I think he's just going to leap him like Darrelle Revis leaped Leon Hall in 2007's draft. But J.C. Horn is going to be a really good corner. He is the best man corner in this draft by far. Part of it is his want to, like he just wants contact and wants that physicality at the cornerback position more than most corners that come out in the draft ever. Like he is definitely a menace to society when it comes to bumping and running and really getting physical with wide receivers on these routes. So that's one of the things I really like about J.C. Horn. He has great ball instincts. He doesn't look back for the ball as much as a Greg Newsome does, but naturally he just instinctively seems to know where that ball is and uses his length appropriately to cause a ton of deflections. You watch his tape, he just breaks up a crazy amount of passes. Now he's somebody you definitely want to put in man most of the time, and he'll cover whoever you need to. He's covered Kyle Pitts and held him up. He's covered the Alabama guys and held them up. He's covered top receivers in the SEC. He is battle tested, and he has come out those battles looking pretty good, and then he tested well. So I think it's obvious to me that J.C. Horn is probably the best corner prospect in this draft. Now, somebody might end up taking Patrick Surtain over him because they value certain things. A lot of the times with good defensive backs, teams always talk themselves out of them because they can't tackle. J.C. Horn is no different. He cannot tackle. And it's weird, right? As physical as he is as a corner, he just doesn't tackle well. And that's going to be a little bit of an issue, but if you have him on man on an island anyways, you're not going to really be worried about how well he's going to tackle because that ball is not going to get to the wide receiver a ton of the time. So I really like J.C. Horn. He's my number 1 defensive back in this class. But let me know what you think. Who do you think is your top 5 defensive backs for the Cleveland Browns in this draft? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.